All right, it's 1 o'clock, and I call the meeting to order of the Tennessee UT Martin Advisory Board. We will have a roll call by Edie.
Okay. Hal Bynum,
Here.
Moniz Hagler, Kelsey Kuntz,
Here.
Philip Smart,
Here.
Art Sparks,
Here.
Julia Wells, and Johnny Wolford.
Here.
You have a quorum.
We do have a we do have a quorum. We have two of the individuals who could not be with us today and could not call in from a video conference, but again, we do have a quorum. The things that I need to note are that the proceeds are open to the public and streaming is via the campus website. All meeting materials have been posted on the advisory board website. Kelsey, we want to welcome you because we had lunch with you a little bit earlier. She is our student representative to your first official meeting. And Chancellor Carver, you want to offer a word of welcome and provide us with the COVID-19 requirements.
Absolutely.
And the M&Ms.
And the M&Ms, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chairman Sparks. Kelsey, we are so happy to have you. Kelsey's a wonderful student from Dyer County, studying agriculture, and would love to have her, as she's about to finish up, we've reminded her there are great master's programs at UT Martin that she can pursue, and she doesn't have to leave West Tennessee. And I'm sorry, Kelsey, I'm putting a little pressure on you.
I know.
But it's right.
I feel a little targeted right now.
We are closing down on our first month of operations. I'll talk a little bit more broadly about campus, but thought I would tell you all, give you a little bit of a COVID update. I'm very pleased with how our campus has responding. Yesterday, we were down to, we had 31 active cases for students, 4 active cases, I believe, of our employees, and we just had one student who currently is isolated in a room. We have several rooms on campus for isolation. Just one of those is filled. Obviously, we don't want anyone in an isolation room, but that is, we're able to maintain campus and be an educational institute with numbers like that. And going forward, I think we had a nice conversation at lunch about how things are going in the classroom. I think our students want face-to-face instruction so badly that they are generally taking to wearing masks, the mask mandate that we have indoors. Had a few hiccups as we just got started. What's it mean? What counts as indoors? I didn't think that was a question, but it is a question that we received. But it's gone well, and we're grateful for that. We continue to monitor not only our rates on campus, but look at things like transmission percentages in the area. I send our numbers to West Tennessee Healthcare every day, so they're kept abreast because of volunteer hospitals here. But then we have an emergency management group that meets at least once a week, but we talk by email often. We also talk to our colleagues all across the UT system about this, and we get together and talk. There's a work group that works specifically on COVID, but we also have a virus expert at the Health Science Center in Memphis, and it's really nice to have that as a resource to ask questions. So we've got a lot of work to do. We do want our campus to be as safe as it can possibly be, but we also want it to feel like a true residential experience. And I'm very pleased with our first month. Any questions about COVID-19?
How do our stats compare to the other campuses?
Really, when you look at the campus sizes, I'd say we're doing really well. Obviously, Knoxville would have the most, but they have the most students living there. But I think we're doing really well, especially right now numbers in terms of quarantine. So very happy about that.
Have you had any students required hospitalization?
We have not. Let me make sure. I don't think so. Is Andy? No, we have not. Not that we know of. Not that we know of. So, which is always a good thing.
Sure.
Everybody feel free to follow the things Charlie Deal will be happy. I have my trusty Westar mask with me, but I had promised not to look at the chancellor when I talk. That way I'm not spreading any germs or anything, although I have been vaccinated and have had COVID. Any other questions for the chancellor on as far as the COVID restrictions? And he and I did, or we all visited at lunch, talking about what the status is in the state of Tennessee, what the status is federally, and he gave us an update there as far as what Tennessee is doing and what will be required more than likely. We're all plowing new ground with this, so nobody really knows, but we just have to live with what is a problem. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. The minutes were sent out prior to us meeting. I would assume that everyone has looked at them, and are there any corrections or modifications or additions? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All right, I will accept a motion from Hal Bynum and a second from Philip Smart.
There you go.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. I'm going to call Dr. Cavalier up, and he is going to give us an enrollment update and answer any questions that we might have on that. Still ironical that he hires a Dr. Cavalier in the Crockett County Cavaliers. I just can't get over that.
And our boss.
Oh, you hadn't thought about this.
Yeah, that's why he hired me. Excellent reasons. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And the slides I'm going to show you are not where we want them to be, or the slide I'm going to show you. Our enrollment has dipped this year, and I'll talk a little bit about what we have seen preliminarily about the reasons for that. COVID obviously has hit our campus in terms of students returning or not returning, as it has hit many regional comprehensive universities. And Keith and I and Dean Robinson were talking yesterday about the fact that the pattern nationally seems to be that the flagships are doing well, either flat or a little bit up, whereas the regional comprehensives are down. And I don't have a theory for why that would be the case, but it could be football games. Who knows? But anyway, that's what I'm going to show you is similar to what is happening in other areas. I do want to mention that the numbers you have in your packet were prior to our official census day, so they're a little bit different, but not by much. We're showing at the end of our census period 1,043 students, new first-year students. So a little bit up from what you see there. And that's just a tick under 16% yield from the students who applied and were admitted. We've had solid application numbers. We had a very solid response to our intent to enroll survey prior to students getting here. But many more students melted. They said they were coming and then didn't show up on the first day of classes. And we're going to be looking at some data about where some of those students have gone or where they have not gone. We have a way to identify what institutions they may have gone to if they didn't go here. I think we all suspect that some of those students just felt like at the last minute they were not able to pay, that the financial picture was just, it wasn't going to work this semester. So we are going to go after those students and try and re-recruit them. Jamie's office and Destin Tucker will be doing that. We were down a little bit on our transfers. We readmitted more students this year than we have in past years, and that's a great sign. Some of those students stopped out last year in the middle of COVID when we were completely online, and I hope that we continue to see that pattern. The big drop for us is in the returning students. We're not facing a huge drop-off in our first to second year retention. We're at about 69.9%. Of course, you want it to be 70, so you don't have to say 60, but we're about 4 points lower than where we were last year, which is a real drop, and it's, when you have 1,100 students, that's real. But it didn't drop through the floor. Where we've seen more attrition is really folks who are sophomores and juniors who, for one reason or another, have not continued on. And again, there's opportunities to re-recruit them. Jamie Mantooth works with a group called Re-Up, which is specifically recruits students who have stopped out, and that's been very successful over the past couple of years. So we'll continue to work on that. You know, the thing that we cannot fix right now is the perception that at any moment we're going to go online, and we know that some of our students who were here last year, really up through the entire summer to the last minute, believed somewhere we were going to go online, whether it was before the semester started or 2 weeks in, and I know Philip, ag folks have been talking to me about that. But we have a few other things that we're going to be working on to try and figure out a way to change the first year experience in particular, and figure out what do students need post-COVID. Because that's something I don't think any of us really knows. I know what might have worked in a pre-COVID world to help students, first-year students, transition. That's not the same. I mean, there are similar things, but that's not going to be the same. And as you hear the state talk about learning loss and things like that, you know, we're going to have students over the next couple of years who have faced that. And so what does that mean in terms of preparing them to succeed in university? So we're going to be doing a few things, and let me tell you about those, and then I'll take some questions from you about the numbers, and also, and by the way, happy to give the official census numbers to Keith so he can share them with you if you'd like to see the final counts. But in terms of what we're doing going forward this year, I think the biggest thing that we're doing is we're working with the John Gardner Institute to go through a Foundations of Excellence in the First College Year Self-Survey and Action Planning Process. John Gardner is the biggest figure in terms of first-year education nationally, and has been doing this a very long time, and this institute that he has created in the last, I guess, 15 years has worked with well over 150 universities who are interested in trying to improve the first-year experience. That's not necessarily a course. It's just everything that happens to a first year when they're here. So that will require a lot of data collection. We've already begun that, a lot of survey work to figure out people's perceptions about what should happen in the first year, and that's students, faculty, staff, and we'll gather that and discuss 9 different dimensions of the first year experience, and that's whether it's our philosophy or how faculty respond to it, or how you work on learning for first years, and I think that one is going to be very important given that learning loss concern. But that will also feed into our quality enhancement plan, which is a part of our SACS reaccreditation process. It's a requirement. And so that will essentially be the foundation for that QEP, which we will submit to SACS. It's a very doable project, and at the end of this year, we will know what we need to do differently and implement those things so that we start to change what the experience that first-year students have here. Another piece that we think is very important is we are hiring for a director of retention. Now, that position is important because there are a lot of really good things happening around campus to try and keep students here, to keep them persisting and to graduation and thriving. But there is a lack of complete coordination around all of those initiatives that are going on, or the work that's going on. And we think we need someone who can really help us focus on some of the best things. So that Ag is a good example of a college that has been very successful at retaining their students. In fact, their first-gen students actually stay at a higher rate than students who are not first generation, significantly higher. That's remarkable, and that doesn't just happen. I mean, that's because of how they approach things. So the director of retention is going to be a coordinating function, but also helping us understand some things that we're not doing that he or she knows have worked at other institutions. And so I think that's very important. We are, as I said, going to aggressively re-recruit the students who melted, but we're also going to try and figure out if there are other patterns besides where they might have gone. You know, is this primarily Pell eligible students, and we've got to rethink how we could do their scholarship packaging. We know that we lost a lot of students from Shelby County. So we need to think about and look at what, are there patterns in that group? And that's probably about half, a little more than half of the students we lost. So we're going to look at the data, but also try and respond with some changes that we hope will entice them to come to us either in the spring or next fall. And then to make a transition into the new programs, we have been working consistently for the last 2 years on this strategic enrollment plan and management process that has included developing new programs. So I'm not here to say we're doing everything the same way this year and we promise that it's going to be better, right? That's not a compelling strategy. We know that we're going to bring in new programs. We already have some that have been approved. We have others that are under development, and we're doing some things around retention to improve that as well. So, Lindy, if you could switch, please, the PowerPoint. I'm just going to sing in between so that there's not dead space, dead air.
Oh, man.
Keith, thanks for the chuckle. Okay. I want to just mention real briefly that one of the challenges with bringing new programs forward in this state is that our faculty governance process really works through the fall semester, and so by November we know if we have new programs coming forward. Because of that, we only get 2 shots to get our programs approved by THEC, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, December or July. So we can't get all of the approval from the Board of Trustees and THEC before December, and so it winds up pushing out to July. And I bring that up because our BS in cybersecurity, which is one of our new programs, which I'll show you in a minute, that's one that if the timing had been different, we could have been recruiting for that and started that this year. That's the way it's set up right now. No one cares what I think, but that is a bit of a challenge and it will continue to be a challenge. So the first thing we've done is we've taken the vet tech and vet science concentration out from under the animal science degree. So if you wanted to be in vet tech or vet science, you were an animal science major and then you had a concentration in this. And we really feel like the success of that program warranted making it its own degree, and that will help us with recruiting, certainly. It helps our students when they're going out to try and find vet tech jobs. We don't have a lot of problem getting our students into vet school. We had 17 get into vet school this year, which is just, I can't stress how remarkable that is. I taught at Auburn for 2 years, and the only, well, that's not true. Many of the students who were the most anxious were the pre-vet, because they felt like anything but an A, they couldn't get into vet school. So for us to have 17, I think we're probably the best ag program in the state, and certainly those kinds of numbers for our size would suggest that.
Amen.
I thought I might get an amen from you, brother. And so this projected enrollment, please understand that's not a new number. We're not saying we're going from 0 to 300. Our program is very successful. We're talking here over time about probably adding 50 to 75 students and being able to recruit from a broader, from a larger distance out into St. Louis, for instance, where there's a lot of interest in vet tech. There are not a lot of vet tech majors in the nation. We're one of the few, and we think that this will certainly be helpful. Also, there is a real shortage of veterinarians in the state, and if my memory is correct, I think we have, if we were to double the number of vets right now, we would cover the perceived need in the state. So we're contributing to helping the state in that way. And you've seen this. I'm not going to do the PowerPoint karaoke, but it's very, very sound program that includes both the theoretical and in classroom and in lab work. Students work in the clinic on animals. They get a whole range of experiences, whether that's with surgery, x-rays, all the rest of it in care. So that's, I think, a great addition. The Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity, this was one that was identified really as the greatest opportunity for growth when we did our strategic enrollment plan. And several institutions have added this in the, let's call it 8-state, 9-state region. But what we saw at Southeastern Missouri State was a tremendous increase in their computer science enrollment, but also the number of students who just came for this. And that was somewhere around 150 after 2 or 3 years. One of the things that this does, of course, it fits beautifully with our Latimer building opening in fall of 2022, which is when this program will be up and running, again, because of the recruiting, the time frame that this was approved in. One of the things that this also does is it is not a program that is built around business enterprise software or programs. This is built around computer science that allows students to understand the concept and apply it more broadly. This came up with THEC. How are you going to make sure that the students are ready for 5 years down the road? And we think that a real strong foundation in the computer science side of it is something that allows them more flexibility and to be able to grow into different jobs that probably don't exist right now. And that 50 students by year 5, we wanted to be conservative. We didn't want to bring you a number that's, you know, ludicrous and then fall short of that. We think that number is very conservative. And we have hired a cybersecurity faculty member, and as that program grows, we will add another one. And this has been reviewed not just by THEC, but by an external reviewer who felt this was a very strong program the way it was designed. And these things are in place, the new resources. And this will be an ABET accredited program, which is our engineering accrediting body, and very few cybersecurity programs are accredited by ABET, and ABET is the gold standard. So we felt like that was a better way to go than one of the cybersecurity accrediting bodies. And then the last, we have a new criminal justice master's degree, and this will start in the spring. So we're really excited about this one. One of the things that is great about this program is that it's geared towards working adults who are able, in some cases, to bring in prior learning to move towards their degree, so that can reduce the time that they need to get to graduation. There is no residency requirement, so again, you don't have to take 3 weeks off from your job for the state troopers in order to finish this program. It has 2 concentrations, and the folks in the faculty felt like these were really important areas for the state of Tennessee: corrections administration and law enforcement administration. And what's really great about the flexibility of this program is that you could decide, I wanted to get a certificate in one of those 2 areas. I don't want to get the whole degree, but I want to have more knowledge about how to do this, and a corrections administration certificate might be all I need in order to get to be promoted. You can also complete the master's degree, but you can complete the master's degree and get the other certificate. So in other words, you could get both law enforcement background, administration background, and also corrections. So there are lots of different ways that folks can move through this program. And as you see, here's some of the information about the prior learning assessment, and we have a very strong faculty that has a lot of experience in law enforcement as well as the terminal degree. So we're excited about this one. Our external reviewer said that he was not aware of a program like this. Now, he may have been very generous, but this is not built on the model of every other program that's out there. So that will start in the spring and will certainly add to our graduate student enrollment. That's the presentation on those 2 pieces, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about enrollment or new programs. Oh, I should just say, I'm sorry, one other thing. We are also in the middle of moving a new Bachelor of Science in Construction Management program through the faculty governance process. And that is, we know from the data that we gathered in the SEP, that's a needed area, but it's also something where students who are interested in engineering but perhaps can't get through Calc 3, that's an off-ramp for them, and they can continue doing some of that work without having to try and keep getting through Calc 3. Again, another opportunity, and we're working on a master's in music education, which is, again, another important degree to provide for educators in the K-12 classrooms for them to be able to move forward. So lots of new stuff happening, and we really believe that these will help us as we try and counteract the effect of COVID.
Dr. Cavalier, the Chancellor gave us some information about the number of students that we lost to Tennessee Southern, which was very few.
Right.
Did that surprise you?
You know, I don't think so. I think longer term, as UT Southern becomes an entity that's known, that might be the case, but they're an outstanding institution and we're glad to have them in the system. But I think the things that we offer here are well established in some very important areas for Giles County in that area, especially ag. So I don't see that we're going to lose students who are coming here for those kinds of programs. It may be the case that students interested in some of the other areas might stay there, but instead of coming here. But I think that they have an opportunity to recruit different students from who we recruit.
You said you were going to do some research on why the students melted.
Yes.
I believe. Are you doing the same research on the sophomores and juniors that did not come back?
Yes.
Where did they go? Or did they just not return? Are they sitting out a year?
Right. Yes, because the same information is going to help us in both cases. We have something called the National Student Clearinghouse, which provides data on where every student attends. So we can put that in for certainly the students who melted. And if we find out that 80% of those students did not go to another institution, that is pretty significant. That tells us this was not about us. This was about other issues that we may be able to address. And likewise, if we find out that many, many of them went to a community college or to Tennessee Tech or something, then we have to think about where did we lose them in our messaging over the summer and what we did with them. But we also can use that information for the students who did not return, who are sophomores, juniors, or rising seniors. And in some cases, they will have transferred to another four-year institution. Obviously, if you're a junior, you're not going back to a community college. But I think we can get that picture. We have some limited exit survey data. Typically, students, when they leave, say, well, I'm leaving for financial reasons. And that is often true, but sometimes there's a different trigger that they don't feel comfortable sharing with us. But we can certainly bring back to you some information about here's the percentage that went to four-year, two-year, didn't go back at all, and also how many institutions some of them have been to, because that's another indicator. If you have a student who is at Martin and this is the third institution he or she's been at, that is another reason why they may not be staying here, is that they haven't settled or haven't succeeded necessarily.
You know, I have a genuine concern for the high school kids that have gone through this COVID, and the college kids also. How do you see the incoming freshmen? Are they as prepared, both academically, socially, everything else, as what we've seen in the past? And I know that's not a quantitative that you can
Sure.
say, well, 18% are this.
Right.
What are you seeing?
Well, I would say that in terms of the quality of the class that we brought in, by the same metrics that we usually use, it's fairly similar, but understand that we had a lot of students who did not submit an ACT or SAT. And I think that's a reasonable approach this year. I would defer to Dr. Smart, who's been with those students and heard from his colleagues. I mean, do you have some observations about that?
I would add a couple of things. I think there is a great deal of concern about academic preparedness and what they've been through, and maybe some shortcuts that may have been taken and things they may be missing coming into school. That's a real concern. Our experience with Governor School this summer, we noted some deficiencies in not having been writing lately. And so when you get out of that habit, it's hard to get back into. There are also social aspects that we dealt with. You know, when a student is accustomed to rolling out of bed at 5 till 8 and checking in at 8, getting back into the habit of getting up early and actually preparing and going to class, that was a bit of a struggle too. So I think there are academic and social concerns about getting our students back into the swing of things.
And we're hearing, generally, it's anecdotal at this point, but I think all of us have heard, Kelsey, I know you've heard your classmates, there are some that are just, it's strange for them to be back in a class. And what's this like? And this feels somewhat mechanical because we've been studying in boxes for 18 months. And so I don't know if you can call it anxiety, Kelsey, but there's a strangeness to that. And students have told me it's taken them a while to get used to sitting in a room with people again.
There definitely is, excuse me. There definitely is a strange feeling as someone who was on campus full-time for a year and a half before the pandemic of getting back in the swing of being in that classroom setting. You know, we've altered our study habits completely over the course of the last 18 months. Now I'm sitting in a classroom listening to a professor 5 days a week. It's just a very different atmosphere to be in. To comment more on what Dr. Smart was saying with our freshman class, I'm serving as a PEP leader again this fall, and I think with our freshmen, especially, like, again, I just have a small 20 students in my class, but I'm seeing a lot of, they've been at home for 18 months. They've had mama and daddy doing everything for them, and so their adjusting to college life is very different. You're out on your own, and I think it's just it's going to take an adjustment period for those students.
Do you think the professors have adjusted to maybe students coming in with a little less preparedness? Like the writing, the writing is a perfect example.
Some of it is we're trying to accommodate and help them as much as possible. I'm pretty thankful, at least in the fall, they seem to snap into like the social stuff pretty quick and gotten used to that. I'm not sure where we are long-term on some of the other academic things that we may be having to deal with. I think time will tell.
And I think what we'll know at the next meeting and certainly in the summer is much more about how they performed and where some of those concerns were. But I'd also say this, if you think about certain school districts right now that have gone online or, you know, gone back and forth, you know, there will be students coming to us next fall who have had half of their time in high school or more, depending on what happens in the spring, online. And so for them, you know, a real classroom experience for an entire year is far in the past. So, you know, unfortunately, I think a lot of this stuff we are going to have to continue to figure out, okay, we never thought it would cause this, and now we got to figure out how to address whatever this is, and I think that's going to continue for several years.
One of the numbers that's in here or not in here that I'd like to know is sometimes I'm asked a very simple question. How many students are at UT Martin in total?
Yep.
How many of those are on campus and how many of those are through the different centers?
So we've got,
Can you?
yep. So head count for this fall is 6711. And that's
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly, give or take. No, it's 6711 on Census Day. That compares to 7,100 and I think 19 last year. Now, understand there are dual enrollment students in that who affect our, you know, revenue less and all the rest of that. But that's a significant drop, and that's, I think, works out to 5.4% decrease in our head count this year. Now, I don't have off the top of my head the residential versus commuter.
Yeah, right now, we've got 1,700 living on campus.
Living on campus.
Living on
but
campus.
On campus, coming in and going to class at Martin.
That's 12 that are actually living in one of our residence halls.
But you've got people that don't live in residence. I mean,
I see.
If you were to tell me how many students are attending Martin, UT Martin at Martin versus the Parsons Center and so on and so forth,
I've got that number.
I'd be interested to know.
I'll give it to you in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
And one other thing I want to point out, and this is an initial, this is a first piece of data that we need to look more at, but this year, the students, first-year students who were not Pell eligible, 80% of them returned, 81% of them. The students who were Pell eligible, only 60% of them returned. Now, that's a significant gap, that is much larger than it has been over the last 4 years, significantly different. And the actual 60% is much lower in addition to that gap being larger than it has been. So that doesn't mean, that's not, that doesn't say that finances are the only reason why students did not return, but that is a real indicator that that's been a problem for our students. Sir?
I'm wondering, following up on those students, they faced a employee recruiting program this last 6 months we've never seen in our life before. They're pounded every day with radio, television.
That's right.
Billboards, job packages, employee benefits that they've never seen before. You expect some of those kids may say, I believe I'm just going to get a job and not go back to school.
I do. And I would also say that some of the students who during the online period last year also got jobs and decided that that felt pretty good and didn't want to give up the jobs and come back. That is going to be something we'll have to continue to try and make a case for why it benefits them to come back for the 4-year degree. And then, I mean, there's plenty of reason to go get a job, and there are a lot of good jobs, but we think there is also a real advantage to the 4-year degree. That is going to be there. I think what we will see over time is an increase in our degree completion program for some of the students who have 1 year or 2 years and then decided they wanted to go back and get a job. That's completely online, and I can foresee that will grow in 2 or 3 years as some of those folks say, you know what, I've hit a ceiling, I need to get that 4-year degree.
One more question on
Sure.
the academic programs. I have asked this in the past. I'm going to ask it today. I will ask it in the future. If there is such a shortage of veterinarians,
Yes.
why can't there be a satellite of the vet school at UT Martin? And if UT continues to say they don't want to put a satellite here, why don't we approach Auburn? They got the same football uniforms we do. They got the same colors. They got everything about putting a satellite here.
That's right. Some of the ways they
Yeah,
played
Mr.
last year.
Provost, answer that.
Well, can you pull the plug on so I can? I think that our programs, our ag programs, are the kinds of programs that would warrant having that kind of a vet school here. Our brothers and sisters at UT Knoxville do an outstanding job of preparing vets, but I feel like we've got faculty and a curriculum and an experience to match anybody in the state and beyond. Now, bringing a vet school here is way beyond my pay grade, and my guess is that there are people right now who are tweeting or sending emails.
I just sent one out.
Did you? Good for you. That's probably going to help.
Cavalier says
Anyway,
vet school right here.
I think it would be great, and I know we have folks who could.
Well, if capacity is an issue in Knoxville and we need more vets,
Yep.
why aren't they interested in doing something? Johnny?
Can I follow up on that?
Yes, sir.
I've spent most of my life with this issue, quite honestly. We don't necessarily have a shortage of veterinarians. We have a shortage of veterinarians that treat large animals and work in rural areas. There's a huge spread between your veterinarian that works dogs and cats entirely, those that work large animals. There's a lot of incentive programs in the vet schools that develop programs where they'll give a tuition reduction if a student will go to a deprived area and serve for 2 or 3 years in a large animal practice. It gets down to dollars and cents. It's real simple. These are the governor's school kids that come to our farm in the summertime for a tour. Over half of them will be veterinarians. And I tell them, I said, look at people on each side of you. One of you is not going to be a veterinarian. You'll never make it. But they all want to be horse vets. Most of them want to be horse veterinarians. That's their passion. Horse and cow and pig vets don't near make the salary that a dog and cat veterinary does. They start out in large animal. They've got a huge veterinary school expense. They're trying to get a practice started. They're trying to get a family started, trying to buy a house. They can't pay the bills treating dogs, treating large animals. It just doesn't work. I'm in cattle business.
Yeah.
I have a finite amount of money that I'll spend to save a cow's life. It's not a fact. She's only worth so many dollars. My dog has infinite value.
I know where you're going, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
My wife says
It's
that
just-
all the time. Me and the kids.
You spend whatever it costs to save your dog or your cat. And therefore, they have a much higher salary income. So that's where our spread is. We can't get veterinarians to stay in the large animal practice because of financial reasons. And there's every interested livestock group in the country has been trying to work on this for 20 years. So far, we really haven't found a solution to it.
Yeah.
Well,
And, you
I
know,
think-
that's a great point that you make, and that's a tough situation.
It is. It's tough.
Well, I want to, do you want to talk
I
about?
was just going to say, there was a study that was done by then President DiPietro, so it'd have to be probably 2017, 2018, and they were looking at expansion of different programs within the state where they thought that we might have some growth. And it came back that veterinary science and dentistry were the two most expensive programs to try to grow, just because of the cost of what it costs to educate a student in those two disciplines. And I think, at that time, it was thought, we can't expand. Now, that's been several years ago, but I know it was an expense issue with ramping up production.
Well, let me mention that we are positioned to address this. And I want to bring forward the Wildwood Farms gift, because so much of the passion for that donor is around large animals and large animal science, equine science, and that's not vet school, and I get that. But what happens on that farm for the students who are down there working there is going to be a lot of work with large animals. Who knows if that translates into them going to vet school and continuing as large animal vets? But I think that's a way to create more students who are not only interested but have some background in that area. So, and there are all sorts of other things that might come from that farm as we continue to develop that.
Other questions for Dr. Cavalier?
I have a question of
Yes.
interest, Dr. Cavalier. With so many students being online due to COVID and UT Martin having to send everyone home, have we seen an increase in students this fall that are staying online, that have just decided not to come back in person?
So we've told the students that we are open face-to-face. We have our traditional online programs. Those have continued. But with the exception of students who are in quarantine or have tested positive for COVID, who in some cases are getting an online experience to keep them in the course, it's basically back to where we had been previously. We have a very, very small number of faculty members who, for health reasons, asked to teach online, and they were granted those exceptions, but they're exceptions. So I think we're primarily back to a face-to-face experience at UT Martin.
To answer that question that Art asked earlier about the number of students here taking classes full-time, taking out the centers and dual enrollment, I think that's right at 5,000, around 5,000 students.
Is your dual enrollment up or down?
It's down by about 15.
Okay.
It's in, round and error.
And much of that is we couldn't get in the high schools to recruit this year.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
That was a big issue.
Yep.
Any other questions about the enrollment update or new academic programs? I commend Dr. Cavalier and the Chancellor on doing things, because obviously the university has to be very fluid and flexible in what they do with academic programs. Cybersecurity, the vet tech programs, the criminal justice, that's a pretty good indication that we're following where the needs are.
Yep, that's right.
And again, my hat's off to you there.
Dr. Cavalier, your Auburn Tigers are traveling to Happy Valley to play Penn State Saturday night. Would you like to make a prediction on the ball game?
I'd be happy to make a prediction. I'm not going to do it here, but I'd be happy to make it. No, Auburn, I think, will win handily. I'm going to put that out there, 42-10. I don't know that Penn State knows what SEC football looks like. They're going to find out.
Okay. The only thing I can promise you is I can tell you what the score's gonna be. It'll be 0-0 before they start the game.
That's exactly
That's the only prediction I
That's
can make.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Thank you so much.
Hearing no other questions, thank you very much. Dr. Carver,
Yes.
you have some things to add.
Some things to add. It has been a strange start to the semester, but a much better start than last year at this time. And so we're very encouraged with that. Couple of things capital-wise within, I'm looking at 30 days or so, we'll be sweeping out some sawdust over in Clement Hall. That renovation will be complete. You're going to see eventually a lot of admissions, bursar, financial aid, a one-stop shop type student success type area for our students use there. It's going to be really nice, and we'll do a nice grand opening for that, and you'll all be invited back for that. A lot of the authentic Tennessee marble that was put in that building when it was built is being repurposed in terms of countertops, and so it's gonna look great. So that's happening. Then next spring, obviously we're not offering classes in there next fall, but next spring, starting in April, if Shadow's crossing his fingers every night, looks like we'll be moving into the Latimer building. And that will be a wonderful grand opening. Obviously, we'll do a big celebration for that, but to be offering classes in there this time next year, we're going to be real excited about that. And Mr. Latimer's going to be especially excited because we'll be on time, which we're really excited about, thrilled about that. After that, projects that aren't quite as flashy but equally as important is we're going to have 2 major mechanical upgrades going here. One's in the current EPS building. We're going to go in, basically do a complete mechanical upgrade in there. So you're looking at HVAC, electrical, plumbing, everything. And so while a $14 million project in there isn't quite a new building, it certainly makes the building much more functional. We'll be able to put some classes and areas in there, use those labs, and so we've really gained some teaching instruction space there. So excited about that. Also, we'll be looking at the Hall Moody building, which is the administration building. We're all going to be pulled out. Everybody who's in there, they're going to do a complete mechanical upgrade on that. We'll all be moving into old residence hall rooms in the top of Clement Hall, which should be a lot of fun for about 18 months and be real cozy in there. But again, it will really be nice to have that building rehabbed and much more functional. Athletics season has started off well without a hitch. Hosted our first football game against Sanford last weekend, had family weekend, brought in about 750 family members. Kurt, what would you say our attendance was last Saturday?
I think we announced 6,500.
6,500. So great crowd. Kurt tried to make it more exciting and told the team to commit 5 turnovers in the first half, and but we still won. So it was a great way to keep people at the game and buy more concessions. And Kurt's brilliant like that. So it was really good. Do need to brag. We've got right at 500 student athletes, but during the pandemic, when you look at last fall and spring, with a 3.28 and a 3.29 respectively, athletics had the highest cumulative GPA they've ever had. And
Good.
Really good leadership there, really good faculty working with our students and coaches and support. But tip of the hat goes to athletics. They've done a great job. We hosted our first cross-country meet here that we've hosted in several decades here last week. So it feels like we're running again, and real excited about that. In terms of institutional marketing, you're going to see a lot more of us out there, and I think when you look at enrollment, when you look at these new programs we've got to advertise, we do need to keep the message out. We have hired our first full-time videographer in a time when you don't have a lot of media outlets coming to develop content for you. We're going to be pushing out content of our own, and really excited about that. We've also hired a social media coordinator who is responsible for UTM's social media presence and trying to guide the chancellor on what he should and should not put out there too is another part of that. So really excited about that. Fundraising had just a excellent year. I did write it. Charlie would tell you 87.8 million, but with Chancellor math, that's 88 million last year. Obviously Wildwood being a big piece of that, but I think if you look at the last 2 years, we've been affected by the pandemic, and Advancement has brought in over 5,000 unique donors each of the last 2 years to the university, and that's up about 400 than what we were doing 3 years ago and 4 years ago. So our alumni and Advancement folks, Charlie's team's just doing an exceptional job, and had a large gift last year with Wildwood, but already have put out several $1 million proposals in this fiscal year that we're waiting to hear back on. So they are certainly not resting on their laurels, and they're doing a great job. Quick update, we talked, Dr. McLeod came and talked to us about diversity. I want to tell you we're doing a program called RISE right now with 40 freshmen of color and going through a mentoring experience, a cohort experience of all these students together, taking classes together, going through mentoring, getting professional and personal development classes, and we're going to track this because one area we know we need to improve on is retention with our students of color, and think that this pilot program, so far, great feedback from the students on it, and we're going to see how it impacts our retention, and we'll keep you posted. Dr. McLeod will certainly be back. I'm going to get in trouble here because whenever you start talking about campus heroes, you leave somebody out. But we've had a wild 17, 18 months here, but this team has really worked hard to make it happen, to make it so we can have people in the residence halls and people in face-to-face classes. But Shannon Deal and her team over in student health and counseling have been fearless, and they've had to be fearless. They have gotten in there, they've given us great advice, they're up close, they're open, and working with students not only in their physical health but in mental health too. And they're doing a great job. We don't have enough of them, and we need more folks in Shannon's shop, and we realize that. When you think about Brad Burkett and his team in facilities and cleaning and sanitation, they're doing a great job. And some of the things that we're doing in sanitation and cleaning now because of COVID, Johnny, we're just going to keep doing them because it's good practice. And the way we bring air into our buildings, the type filters we use, the way we fog disinfectant at night, and they're doing it, and they're doing a really good job, and I really appreciate it. And again, a lot of our workers in those areas are going in places that are not dangerous, but they're higher risk because they are in and doing a lot of intense cleaning. But Chief Ballou, I hate to give Monty Ballou public credit. His head's going to swell hard, but
How could it?
that's right. How could let the minutes reflect that. But really, campus safety and security has really stepped up, and a real visible presence on campus during COVID. Real innovative things. Chief Ballou every day in September is doing a 7-mile walk, run, or ride to commemorate and bring advocacy for suicide, and getting students involved with that. We've got a new campus companion animal that's been around better part of 2 semesters in Morton, and it brightens people's day. It's the most photographed dog in the country, but people like it. But a real, in a time of a lot of just stress and anxiety, our campus safety has really jumped up. And of course, Peter McPherson's over both campus safety as well as facilities, but just folks doing a great job there. Our student affairs team, whether it's be programming, keeping the residence hall safe, they're doing a great job, and we're really grateful for them. Our athletic trainers, coaches, our support folks there, making sure our students can travel, they stay eligible to play, they get all the testing. The NCAA has put all sorts of crazy requirements on them, and they're doing a yeoman's work. They're having to work harder with those students than just your traditional student coming to class because of all the testing and everything that they need. Our library has just answered the bell. One of the most customer-friendly, customer service groups on our campus. And our new dean there, Dean Nordberg, and his team are just constantly looking up, how can I better serve our students, faculty, and staff. And during COVID, keeping it to where many people are saying, we don't want crowds. They're saying, no, we'll figure out the crowd here. And we're grateful for that. And then our faculty. I mean, our faculty being willing to come back and do face-to-face, and some folks are nervous about it, but they're absolutely making it work. Our students are telling us great things about them, and hats off to Dr. Smart and his 300 colleagues, and I think Anderson Starling, our faculty senate president's in the back, and we've got great people here. And again, I've left off 1,000 people off this, but folks are really pulling together and trying to make this work. And it's hand-to-hand combat every day, but there's a good group of people here working. So we're awful proud of them. Any questions about?
We had an alumni get into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Tell them to do it.
Brandon Rowland.
Yeah.
Brandon Rowland. Great point. Brandon Rowland, a graduate 1990s, early 2000s, late 90s. Got in, Brandon, because of a situation when he was young, has a prosthetic leg, but won a national championship, a world championship in wheelchair basketball with a team out of Jackson. Also is a phenomenal golfer and just an inspiration for people with physical limitations everywhere. And I think, Art, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think it was pretty unanimous when his application came through.
It was. I'm lucky enough to be on the board. Keith put him in there as, he nominated him. And I'll tell you, Mike Keith does our presentation. And if you get an opportunity, go back on the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame and look at that particular one, because even Mike Keith says, this is the greatest guy. And if you look at what he's done and what he's accomplished, how he's accomplished, my hat's off to him. Understood, I got a question for you. I understand that some of the administrative people will be staying in Clement Hall even after the administration building is renovated. Is that right?
That's true.
So we're making the area where they were, what are we going to do? Expand the Chancellor's Suite or what?
There's going to be a pool,
Okay.
an indoor pool. No, Eddie, that does not go on the notes. Actually, we're going to be.
It's in the,
It's on video, right. I was just kidding, Randy, just kidding. Actually, we are so compressed in so many offices, it's going to allow us to expand. We need more room in HR for some of that function. We'll have some folks that are packed over here in the University Center. All of Mark McLeod's team, diversity, they're going to come over and be near our equity and diversity folks. So we're going to claim some space back, but it'll just be a lot less cramped. A lot less cramped.
if Petra was here, how would she answer, and she may be here. Okay, how would you answer a question of, how you doing on money? And I know the pat answer is we need more, okay, let's get that out of the way. But how are you dealing with the less students and just financial affairs?
We are actually working on a plan to address this. Fortunately, we do have some first money that will help offset it. And then we're gonna have to do some serious, planning, probably do some type of change in how our budget process works so that we can account for the enrollment, changes that we have.
Okay. Pool's out though, right?
The pool's not gonna be able to happen in administration.
She's also said there's not going to be a men's room on the third floor either, so that got cut with enrollment, so.
Well, for someone who went to the School of Business on the third floor a few years ago, yeah, we never had a restroom up there.
Okay. No sympathy, no sympathy. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Petra. videographer, so we're gonna have a full-time guy so he can do your Christmas stuff.
No. That may have to be cut too.
No,
because of budget constraints.
I'm gonna tell you, your videos that you do, I think, do as much for this university as a lot of other things that we do. It shows that we have a chancellor who loves the students and really cares about this university. And I hate to say anything good about you, but I guess I've got to say that.
The provost wishes that we dial them back just a little bit.
Well,
A little bit?
I encourage you to watch them each year. I'm anxious to see what happens on this particular one. The only other thing I have is I want to remind you that, or a couple other things, our next scheduled meeting is January the 21st, which will be our winter meeting. I'm sure the format will be very similar to what we have right here. It should be noted that Julia and I are actually not here because our terms expired on June 30th of 2021, except the provision says until the governor reappoints or appoints someone to take our place and we stay on. I don't know whether I'll be back or not. I know my chairmanship theoretically goes through June of 22, but if I'm not on, I don't think they're going to allow me to come back and sit at this place, which is fine. If I do not see you, I wanted to tell y'all in person and tell everybody here what a tremendous honor it has been to be the first and best at this point in time chairman of this particular committee. I think it has done good things. I think that we find out a lot more about the university and the going zone, the internal going zone, and I think that is a good thing. Hopefully I will be back, but if I'm not, you guys continue on in what you're doing, and this is a great opportunity. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before?
Chairman, I just want to say, in my experience, you've been the best chair we've ever had.
Thank you. And I accept that with all of the sincerity that it's meant. No, I laughingly tell Keith, every time I talk to Randy Boyd, I tell him what a horrible job Keith is doing, that there's no reason in the world for him to get any type of promotion until he proves himself, and he needs to stay right at UT Martin. And I say that very much tongue-in-cheek because I give Keith and Dr. Smith a lot of credit for saving this university, because this university was in trouble several years ago. Bob Smith came in without an agenda because he was not trying to get appointed to be the chancellor. He made some tough decisions and saw them through, and I will forever be indebted to Dr. Smith, and I will forever be indebted to my Crockett County Flash here that he is. I think we could not have gotten a better person than Keith Carver to come in at the time that he came in. And with that, if there are no other comments, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hal Bynum second that. You didn't hear him nod his head. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you.